Good evening, good day, good morning, depends when you're listening to this.
Hello. Hello.
Welcome back to Road to Redline. We are yet again, Lee, Joe and Andy, joined by Paul and Chuck. The time of this podcast sounds like police for the benefit of the tape. It's 10:15 on the 3rd of November, so we are due to go into lockdown
Imminently.
the day after tomorrow. Yes, so we wanted to essentially record 2 in 1 because we usually record them on Tuesday nights because we just think our podcast works even better when we're all in the room. So that's why there are 5 of us on this pod. So we just want to make that very clear from the off, basically. By the time you hear it, we'll all be
socially distanced.
Yes, exactly. Very deep into isolation and full lockdown. So tonight we're going to be talking about restoring air-cooled cars.
We are indeed.
From home.
We're going to talk about taking them apart. I don't know if he's got it back together yet.
Yes. Yeah. We're going to talk.
You've got a month to do it. You failed in the 4 months.
Socially different distance myself from.
You failed in the 3 months they gave you earlier.
Yes, it's another roll of the dice. Yeah. We'll be talking about Ben Dimson.
Indeed.
Who is the exterior designer of 959 and 964. Is there a dog down there?
He's having a bit of water. He's all right.
Yeah. Yes. Exterior lead designer of the 964, designer of the 959 under Richard Soderbergh, and head of the 3.2 Speedster program. So I have a segment of an interview of him, and we're talking about Taycans. Is that how you pronounce them?
I give up.
Taycans from an owner perspective, because everybody has heard the journalist perspective and our own, which kind of probably falls somewhere in between. That's kind of it, isn't it, really, I suppose?
Yeah, plus whatever else come across on the way.
Ideal. So, Paul and Chuck joining us again, as we said.
Good evening.
Chuck, your SC.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I've not seen it in a year, so I mean, that's a long...
I haven't.
Last time I saw it, it had the back end hanging out.
Yeah, so...
What lamppost was it here?
No, I've not hit anything.
For a while.
So, 20-year project.
Yeah.
So I've got to the rear bumper now in 20 years. So where did you start? The rear bumper?
Started the back.
With the rear wiper.
We do need to clarify. It's a 1982 SE, so it's a late one. Oh, 81, okay. But it's a 204 horsepower, so the latest iteration of the SC.
True.
Do you know what colour it is yet? It's metallic blue, isn't it? Like ice metallic blue?
I think it's had a bit of a change because they did a metallic blue, which I don't like. I'd never have bought the car in the darker one, but this is quite a light ice blue.
Right, okay.
But it was the Jersey demonstrator. So back in 81, it's got a sport kit on it, turbo wing, front wing seats, Bilsteins. Yeah, turbo one wheels on it.
Yeah, it is a... do we say fastidious? But I would say it's the nicest SC I've ever seen.
It's had an easy life because there's no salt in Jersey, so it's not had the motorway hammerings that you get here. So... But no, it's. I looked at a lot of cars, and I looked at 3 litres and S's, the earlier ones, and that just took my eye. So with being light blue and black pieces, the spoilers and what have you, and it's lower, I think, as a spec car. You can't get your fingers into the wheel arches with the tyres there. So so that's the car. Pasha blue interior.
Oh, nice.
So I've had it 22 years. And I've been off the road a lot because I've worked away and I've had a Turbo 2 and other cars in the interim, but was always going to sell it, but never did. So it's not done many miles. Just done 98,000 at the moment.
Really? Yeah, so excellent. It is genuinely, it's a beautiful car. It's in great nick.
And one we took to Italy.
Yeah.
So it's I'm not shy of giving it a run, and to be honest, really pleased because 997, which I've got, would have eaten it. No problem at all. But the that little SC, brilliant.
How much fun was it in those mountain passes? No power steering and those massive wheels. Yeah,
I did have backache when we finished that. What was the pass?
Stelvio.
Yeah, Jesus. all you lot were heading off, and I did the first one or two, and then it wasn't funny after that. But yeah, it's great. It's a lovely car, and the advice I got from a guy called Joe Santos in Jersey, and in fact, Joe Santos has serviced that car for 20 years. It's got stamps on with him signing it every year. So yeah, the car is. He said get an SC because you've not got the hassle of the later cars, the Carrera with the computer on board and all the rest of it. All I've got is injection and I think electronic ignition. But yeah, the car's nice. Interior's good. Yeah.
So you've probably got the most polished set of Fuchs wheels in the country.
Yeah.
How long did that take you?
That was a couple of years, I think.
But that was, you did that, wasn't it? That's just elbow grease.
I love the early.
You did it by hand, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. So I love the look of the web of the Fuchs that's polished.
Yeah.
Well, mine are polished. And people say it's chrome, which I'm quite proud of. But they have the diamond cut rim, which I don't really like the look of it. And so I started with wet and dried the rims to a flat surface, and then used paint stripper, masked off and paint strippered as much as I dare, and then finished off with wet and dry and polished it. And an electric drill mop, and it takes a long time.
That's a labour of love.
I thought 3 more to go.
Didn't have a full size spare then.
Yeah, luckily no. But I just one of those cars. It's nice because there's no pressure to do anything. It doesn't need anything. It hasn't cost me anything at all in terms of other than servicing and the time I've had it. Consumables. But then, as off the road for 6 years, recommissioned it, and the head bolts are snapped. I didn't know this. They may have been snapped years. I don't know. But they pulled out 5. So.
Can't be many left after 5 gone, surely.
There's a few more. But I can tell you they're 60 quid a piece.
Oh.
So you need 12 of them. I think that's the mass is about right. But it's 993 head bolts they put in place of them. But yeah, so the engine came out, and I think this is the one area I would never go near a Porsche, because you just need to build a lot of them to get it right, because I think you can get it wrong and then it's a big problem. So the engine was done, gearbox was done. Gearbox is the sound. It's just the...
Who did the engine?
It was Camford Classics, and there's a guy called Bob who unfortunately has passed, but he used to do the race car engines in Macau and places like that. A really, really nice guy. But later there's another guy, and I don't know his name. It was subcontract to Camford. But so the gearbox is done. But again, it's silly things like over time the alternator bearing went. So that's done. The starter's been refurbished. Brakes are refurbished. New calipers on it. New dampers on it. The only thing that's left really I'm going to do probably next year is bushes.
Yeah.
It just wants all the bushes replacing, because that's the only thing, and then I'll corner weight it.
Yeah.
But so one project was to the old problem with the aluminium bumpers and steel. You get the sort of white fur appearing on the reaction. So the trouble is you can't blow them in on the metallic car.
Yeah.
Woodville Stretton, all credit to them. They took it on, and the nice thing is I got a price to do the work, and he says that price is halved if you take it to bits. So there's a challenge. So I've never taken anything off the car like that, but you start on doing bolts, and bumpers come off quite easily.
This was this year, wasn't it?
No, this was 5 years ago.
Oh, right.
It feels like only this bloody year, because it's a bit of a story about it. But no, I took it off. I took the bumpers off, and you can, standard sockets. I bought a 3/4 socket set, and if you don't use, a quarter socket set, quarter drive. If you're ever doing anything to car, buy them. I think I got it from Machine Mart. It's a small ratchet and 5 sockets. Get on everything with that, and you can get into everything because a few of the bolts are hidden away. But yeah, I took the wings off, took the bumper off. I took the oil cooler off, and that was a job because the flexes, they all sort of welled up over time. Trying to think what else I did but I took the front right down and trailered it to the paint people. Unfortunately, I was away for a period of time, not in Her Majesty's prison or anything like that. But I was away.
So he says.
Yeah. So it was quite. I said to them, like, you can still see blue paint under the car. It's not been sprayed, but it was sprayed originally. But I said to them, when you put the wing back on, is to, body shuts it, but body shuts it with the wing on, and then put a bit of blue into it again, which they did. And it went back to Camford Classics to have everything put back on, the lights and everything, because, I just couldn't do it. So the car was done. It was easy to undo. I don't know. Having done the back now, I know it could be pretty tricky putting it all back together. But the only bit of rust I had was where the front wing, the back of the front wing comes down, curves under and touches other metal. And there was a size of an old penny hole, which was welded up. I had the aerial taken off. I hate the electric aerial on the bloody thing. Mm-hmm. So that went, and they did a good job. The only thing was rotten was the fill around the filler. You lift the cap in there. That had gone, and a company in Birmingham get them from America. So literally, just that's a brand new piece welded onto the original wing, which is great. It was scuttle pan was getting rusty where you join the wing. That's another area. Mm-hmm. I think there's a black piece of joining material there. But that's all done now. I got a later screen put in it. It's got the aerial in it for the radio. Yeah. So that's tidied that up quite nicely. So it is. So they had to spray in the wings, the doors, and the back wing to lose it. They couldn't lose the paint colour. Yeah. So they had to do everything. So the roof's original. The roof's not been touched, and the boot lid now, because I've done the rear bumper done. But I'd have a go at it if there's somebody to help. Because you do need reference, and now I've done one, I could do one again.
Well, that should be the value in using somebody with expertise like a specialist, because they've done them to death, whether it's an engine rebuild or if they're setting up suspension, they should have had the experience to know what they're doing. That's what you're paying for, isn't it?
And I think it's just knowledge, isn't it? I mean, because they do vary through each of the groups and what have you, because mine being the SC, which I think is still a Porsche engineered car rather than an accountant Porsche engineered car.
Such as?
Well, the next one on was the Carrera. So I've driven a Carrera.
Shots fired.
Yeah, no, I'm. It's one of those things. It's not quite nice to do, because you think actually my car is, like Andy was saying, it sort of gives you that mark to say this is the car that I enjoy, because it's so free revving, and it gets its power out of the revs. You can redline this thing. Must be 7, something like that. But it is. It's only 200 brake, but it's 0 to 60 in 6 seconds or something. I don't know, but it feels quick and it delivers it. The torque's massive.
It's a torquey car. The 3.2's quite heavy, kind of by comparison.
Well, there's no sound in it. You lift the carpet up on mine and it's metal. It's probably got a bit of paint, but there's no modern soundproofing. You can hear every stone hitting up behind the wheel arches, because where the door catches, that plate rots. Fortunately, mine hasn't, but you can hear that sort of thing when driving it. I've put a strut brace in just for the show, but it has stiffened the front end up too much. I might take it out because it's a bit softer, a bit more compliant. This thing's in it now, and you turn it and the car goes. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not like you turn it and wait, it goes. So, but yeah, that's the front part of it done. I've had a bit of fun with the door cards in them, because mine's got wet at some point and it's it's distorted where your bits and bobs drawer is. The armrest comes up and you've got a storage piece. Well, that's warped, and so I've made a jig, and I've wet it, remolded it, put in this jig, and I've used some fiberglass matting to. On the bottom of it where it's screwed to the door, it's all in and out because it was damp, and I've managed to bring all that back up and put a fiberglass matting stripper on the bottom that gives it some integrity.
Nice.
So the everything works again now, because the armrest drops into
collapses down.
Yeah, and then you put your elbow on it, and it's like a boomerang.
Yeah.
So I've had a bit of fun with that. I took the carpet off, and the carpet off the whole thing. But those bits are just, it's just messing around at the weekend, really. Anyway, rear bumper time. So I thought I'll get that done. So
Was that this year?
Yeah,
Is that what you've been
I've
doing?
literally just got it all back together.
Yeah.
But I took it off dead easy. And I bought new bumper bellows, new rubber seals everywhere.
They're more expensive than you think, aren't they?
Well, I've gone pattern part, and I might be kicking myself at the moment, but literally half price pattern part. And you're talking 120 quid for a rear lens from Porsche, which is fine, and 50 quid from elsewhere. But you need to just replace all the rubbers because it's cheap enough, and there's some unusual sort of bits that go on. But one of my friends took on the rear Porsche lens. I don't know whether you remember, but there's a lovely black lettered Porsche right across the back, joining the lights. On mine, it was a bit patchy, and I just didn't know what it was till you get it off. And what it is a big cast of red plastic, and then they paint in the Porsche lettering, and then spray it with silver to give you that brightness and reflection. Well, my silver had come off, so I gave it to one of my son's friends, Tom, who's does all these Sunseeker boat interiors, but he used to do car refurbishment. So thanks, Tom, for doing that. But he basically took off he hot knifed off the plastic brackets, which is brave, and then repainted it all and put it all back together, and then wet and dried the Porsche front and polished it. It is a diamond in a goat's ass now. It's beautiful. It looks amazing, So really pleased. So, so that's all done. But bloody putting it all back together. Oh, refurbish the lights. Love that. Put new connectors on it. Put new, there's like a braided hose for the brake pipe. You can get that for electrics. So the wires come through. Bought all that. It's all like eBay stuff. Did all that. New connectors, heat shrinked it all.
But this, because the list is exhaustive of what you've done.
The trouble is you start and I look at it. I've even put LED lights in the back now. Fantastic. Joe came round. I said, look at this. I put heat to the thing. This heat gun you use for the COVID. I've had one years because it's always nice to see what temperature your engine's at because I'm a bit of a geek that way. But anyway, I put it on the bulb for the reversing light. It's about 70 degrees C. I couldn't believe it, the amount of energy in that bulb. Put it on the LED brake light, which was also on, 20. So, and also blinding, because it worries me in the back of the Porsche. You can't see much on the ST. The ST light's quite vague, and mine's the same, So I'm trying these, and I was worried that it would push out too much heat because the bulb comes close to the reflector piece, the light covering piece. Yeah. So I'm quite interested to see how they get on. Yeah.
But all of what you've done to this SC, as I say, you're fairly hands on with it.
Yeah.
Would you have the confidence to do all of that or to a similar level to the your 997? Like, would you take the 997 apart in the same way? Because as cars that the march of time and more technology, they have got more complicated.
I think it's a challenge. I've not really looked at the 997 that way, actually, because I've taken bumpers off a 996 before because, my wife Linda loved the 996, but came very close to things in car parks. And so I've taken the bumpers off and that was quite easy to do. But crikey, it's pretty much shoehorned in under the bumper. Yeah. There's not a lot of room.
Even like interiors and stuff. I mean, think about, obviously we ripped the inside of the Cayman to bits, and I think we looked at that as a pile thinking, that could go back in at some point if we ever want to move the car on.
There's special brackets and everything, isn't there?
And I think that's not a job you'd actually want to do.
Really?
I think stuff's it's not straightforward if you don't know how it goes.
In fairness, Joe, you were in a rush, mate, so I don't think we actually watched where things came on. I just turned round and you'd done it. And I thought, oh, shit. But no, I think it's quite nice getting underneath the Porsche, the SC, because you can see things. And it's nice to see the new bumper. I've painted the dampers and that. So I've gone for light grey rather than black, which is I did do and then didn't like it. I've gone, it's like a Ford Popular Grey it is on a rattle can. So any accessory bits are painted that now. But the car itself, I've had to touch up a bit of blue paint here and there because it's still blue behind the bumpers. There's a heat shield, believe it or not, above the exhaust, and I had that replated. But I also bought some gold reflective heat tape to put on it. Do I need it? No, but I just wanted to play with it, so that looks good. You look up, there's a nice gold section of material that just above the exhaust. But
Are you trying to sell this car?
Yeah. Anybody wants to buy it, it's up in there. No, but it's also, it makes me smile. I took the exhaust off, which was new 4 years ago, so it's not done many miles, and half of it was no paint, other side was paint. So I just did a bit of wire wool on one side, it all came up nice and shiny, but the other side it probably baked on as it should have done all over. The heat actually adhered the paint, so I ended up rubbing that down so there's not a bit of paint on it at all. Found a hole, got it welded up.
But again, 997, so that if you had the same scenario on the 997, would you tackle that yourself like you have on the SC or not?
I think having had the Cayman, we've done I've helped Matt do the exhaust, suspension, everything. Yeah, you can do it. Yeah,
I think it's easier when you got a fully equipped garage.
You need a 4-poster ramp because it saves you back and it saves you.
I think doing that stuff on your driveway would be.
Well, I've got a pit as well in my garage, lit, lovely fiberglass pit, so I can sit there and fall asleep if I want. But so yeah, you need the kit. But I think the newer cars. Yeah, God, I won't get into the engine. There's too much electronics and that. But, suspension, nut and bolt job. I've done this, the calipers. You got to watch the calipers because the threads can block and you take a thread out of it. 996 is common for that.
Yeah.
But, no, I'll give it a go, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the rear bumper is just a big bit of plastic.
Yeah.
So to get that painted is a lot easier than the job I've done. Bellows, quarter plates under the bumper, the piece under the main bumper itself, and then drill and tap the holes again, having done all the, the filler paint is in it and what have you.
Because that's what's important to get across is you're a bloke in a garage basically. Like you're not some sort of like aircraft engineer. You do this in your spare time, isn't it? So it's good to get like a barometer of someone that's not scared to take the cars to bits, is it?
I've not got a garage, but I am a weapons engineer, so it makes a bit of a difference.
But I mean,
that was many years ago.
In your spare time, do you see what I mean? It's like you don't make a business out of it.
Not at all. No, I couldn't. I never get paid. I couldn't earn any money at it.
Yeah.
But no, I love the engineering piece. I was an apprentice, and you get taught to do things the right way. If you're building a weapons system, it has to be right, and you have to use the right tool.
Yeah.
You can't put a screwdriver that doesn't fit the screwdriver slot, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So I put a lot of money into tools, buy the right tool, makes the job really nice.
Yeah.
So I enjoy it, and tinkering with a blue car is great, but equally it's paid off. 2,500 mile trip to Italy and back, didn't miss a beat.
How about this then? So when you bought the car, which was how many years ago?
98.
Right, okay. So, 20, however many years that is. 22 years. The value of that car has changed quite substantially over time.
Yeah.
Does that affect how you approach the car in terms of the DIY bits and pieces? Because in 2012, that was, half the value of what it was now, isn't it?
Well, I only paid about 13 for it. So that doesn't worry me so much. What worries me is it getting stolen for parts because the engine must be worth 30 grand.
Yeah.
If you start looking at big lumps of it, that would break my heart, really. If someone nicked it and destroyed it in a crash, well, it happens. But to see it as on bricks or something like that with everything taken off it, that would be worse. Yeah. But no, it doesn't worry me at all. I do use it. I've got, a sensible alarm on it. A nice mod is the central locking on the alarm, so you don't have to put keys in the door and maybe just alarm it and the door lock.
Very good, yeah.
Yeah, it is just things like that, but it drives really nice. It'll sit at 70, 80 all day long, and, in other countries it sat at 130 for a long time. It's just nice. The bushes are a bit worn now, so I can feel it isn't as tight as it was 20 years ago, but it hasn't done many miles.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're tackling, I'd tackle an SC, and I met quite a few people who've done far more than me in a garage. But I think the engine side of it, if you've done one before, I think it's all tolerances. But if you're building one engine, I'd pay someone to do it.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't afford it to go pop.
Yeah.
And there's a gearbox in one of the places I mentioned that someone fitted it wrong, and that's gearbox dead.
Yeah.
You can't recover it, and that's a big bill. Yeah. But no, cracking car, there's very little electronics on it. Everything's nut and boltable. Everything you can get at, you can strip it all the way down. Obviously, the rear wings are moulded in rather than the front that are just bolted on. But it's a well-engineered car. Your front wings can be a problem getting them off. Mine was tricky, but they came off. It just take time, really.
We'll put some pictures up on our Redline Instagram page, because I'm not saying it because you've brought around a briefcase worth of biscuits. But it's the nicest SC I've ever seen. It's a beautiful, beautiful car.
I think the colour helps. I really do, because there's a lot of reds, blacks, blues, all those which are lovely.
Yeah.
But this light metallic blue is really good.
Yeah. Well, it's testament to what you've done to that car. And yeah, I didn't want to do you a disservice. I was saying earlier on, what I want to get across is that it's not like you're head of some SC register and written books.
No, not at all.
You're a guy that loves 911s, has a classic, and likes to tinker. So.
In fairness, the 997 will go into the local Porsche dealer. I wouldn't touch it.
Yeah.
Because it's got a fantastic Porsche history with it already. So it would go in. In saying that, Matt, the guy who works on the Cayman's, done the brakes. I've changed it to stainless steel bleed nipples. I know it sounds, why do you do that? But you don't want them snapping off. So whilst they're coming undone, put them on. But those sorts of jobs, I like. I was there, I was helping out, so I can do it. But it's his bay, and I can't just sort of muscle in on it. But the blue one doesn't worry me, the value of it. It doesn't, I try and buy it the best I can get, run it on hot fuel everywhere. I don't, I always pay the money for the fuel.
Interestingly, we talk about values all the time. What do you perceive the value of the car? Do you still look at it as, the 15, 20 grand car you bought back then, or is it now a 70, 80 grand, concours SC that it could be asked?
No, it's not. I don't think it's concours. It's a nice car.
It's not far off though, is it? Come on.
I don't know. I've seen concours cars, and I wouldn't want one, to be honest. You can't use them. But it's difficult, because I've seen cars sold at 45, 50,000 pounds, which were nice. But that one's not got an ounce of rust on it.
Yeah.
Ones I've seen at 40-something thousand have been painted black underneath. It looks pretty horrendous. Mine's still blue paint.
But in terms of when you look at your car now, do you look at it with a modern figure on it, or do you look at it as the figure
I've got an agreed value of 50 on it.
I mean, in terms of the way you might use the car, or
No.
do you know what I mean? Because there's that thing, isn't there? That if
I wouldn't take it into a supermarket, because I don't want to get a ding on it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? But we took it abroad and I parked it in busy hotel car parks on the main street in Switzerland, which was great because there's nothing really around there. I didn't lose any sleep over it.
No, I think what I was getting at, I think if someone had bought your car tomorrow and paid, considerably more for it, they might be the mindset where they would actually keep it tucked up in the garage and probably wouldn't drive it to Switzerland.
Oh, I see what you mean. Sorry. Yeah.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah, I think that's a shame, because I think the monkey's off the back. It's a 100,000-mile car. It's fresh, and if I was in, if we weren't in lockdown, and I've got literally 3 or 4 connectors to put back onto, I've got rear lenses to put back and drive it. Yeah. But I'd drive it to Scotland tomorrow quite happily. I'll just not drive it in the winter. Yeah. Because I think it's just harsh on any older car, really. But I think that'll be the problem, I guess. Yeah, someone might love it. Because if you put a lot of money into it, and if that's everything that person's got, it's going to be a different mindset. But, I think it's a shame the values have gone up so much, because it does make you look at it differently. But it doesn't really affect what I do with it.
No. That's good.
Yeah, it's all good stuff. But a lovely car, and I think that's a power weight type scenario with the Porsches, which is what I like. It's well engineered. It's got a minimum amount of weight in it. Yeah, it's very aerodynamic as well. You know, I came back from Jersey and I commuted to Nottingham every week. So it's there and back every week for 3 months because I didn't have a car. I was trying to find a car, and 25 to the gallon, fifth gear from Bournemouth to Nottingham. I never took it out of fifth gear. Really, just go down from 80 to 50 and back up again. It was a lazy drive, and it was very comfortable, you know, as well, which I was amazed because people are going, oh, backache and all that. Not noisy, you know, sits like, you know, got a sweet spot of 75, probably 80. So yeah, great car. I mean, if people are looking for a Porsche air-cooled experience, I would get an XC if you can find one that's not, you know, got rotten problems where you buy it knowing you're going to be, you know, a year of welding in it on DIY
well, that's the
corner.
thing, yeah, you could find one on eBay for 25 grand and it needs so much work. You're going to be spending that again just to get
It's
it
the
up to
body
scratch.
work where you can blow so much money, you know, rot, getting rid of rot. So I'm so lucky, as I say, it's a Jersey car through and through, and it's been looked after. So it's unloved phased, I think, at some point, but, you know, someone's kept the service book up to date. You know, there isn't a service stamp missing. So,
Well, look, it's good. Yeah, it's good to get an owner's perspective on these things.
no, you're welcome.
You know,
You're welcome.
so
Thank you.
it's a really cool story. We'll put some pictures up on
Definitely.
on Instagram for that. We're going to jump shortly to another owner perspective of
The opposite end of the spectrum, I think.
opposite end of the spectrum entirely. Yeah, in terms of lineage of Porsche, we'll kind of jump in as a slight interlude between those two cars and look at Ben Dimson as a designer, as I mentioned, of his influence was on the 964, the 959 and the 32 Carrera. So there's a segment here of an interview I did with Ben. We'll play that through, have a little chat, and then we'll get on to Taycans. I'm intrigued, Ben, to know what it was like to work at Porsche when you arrived in 1981, because obviously this is only a few months now since Peter Schutz had started. I've read that it was quite disjointed at Porsche beforehand. So from his early days, what was it like to kind of be thrust into that reinvigorated Porsche workforce?
It was very, very exciting, you know, especially for me. Arriving in Germany, I was actually picked up by Dr. Rabe, who was the head of the personnel department at the time. You know, my first ride in a Porsche at the tremendous Autobahn speeds that we reached between the airport and Weissach was just such a, wow, welcome to Germany.
Very good,
It was unbelievable. You know, I've never been above 130 miles an hour, but we were literally doing 165, 170 miles an hour in a Porsche on the Autobahn, and it was just an incredible experience for me. Once we arrived in Weissach, the design staff made me feel very comfortable. The environment was just so exciting. A lot of it was because the personnel that was already there. The design department was being led by Tony Lepine, and he had an incredible group of people around him. There was Richard Soderberg, there was Wolfgang Mobius, the designer of the 928, there was Peter Reisinger as the head modeler, and Ginger Ostel, who was an Englishman but head of the interior design department at the time. I think it was just a confluence of time and the meeting of having the right people at the right moment. When Peter Schutz got there, he had Lepine, of course, in the styling department. He had Helmut Bott, was being groomed to head all of the engineering for Porsche. I guess you could just say that time and the people that were there just created this environment that brought back performance into the car world. Pollution was a very big concern because the standards in America all of a sudden affected everybody's plans to how they sold cars in the world. No? And Porsche was very quick to react to that without losing the performance attributes that Porsches were known for. And of course, the clients expected it. They wanted, you know, the Porsche to remain as high performing as they have been in the past. No? So I guess it's the people who were there at the time that made the difference. And that made for a very, very exciting environment for me. No?
The names that you've just mentioned,
many enthusiasts would consider that to be the golden generation of designers and engineers. How did that kind of make you feel working with these people?
Well, in the beginning, I felt very small because all these people were just incredible names, you know. I read about them in magazines. You know, some of them you would see in films or some movies. No? Porsche racing at the time too was making incredible headlines. You know, especially after the 917, the history of the 917 created a goal that had to be beaten by the next generations of racing Porsches. And it just so happened my time at Porsche, the 962 was created for, you know, that era of racing for Porsche. And it was a phenomenal car as well. And fortunately, the styling department was asked to participate in some of the racing programs through the graphics on the cars or some minor design features to help out the aerodynamics of the car. Yes, yeah, the design department was involved in, for example, the Rothmans cars, the Blaupunkt vehicles, the Hugo Boss, you know, liveries. We were involved in that. No?
The liveries that you've spoken about there, they are just, you know, legendary halo liveries that people think about. If you think of 962, you think of a Rothmans livery, don't you? So, yeah, I told you we'd learn a lot in this interview. So, obviously, you left Porsche, Ben, in 1989 and moved on to Mercedes-Benz. The 964, as well as the 959 and the Speedster and the 928 and the 944 Turbo, that was your incredible legacy at Porsche. With particular reference to the 964 and their rising, not just values today, but I think for many, they are the ultimate derivative of 911 today, because it's that perfect mix of classic and modern. How does that make you feel, you know, the reception of the 964 today?
Oh, I'm so flattered by the reception that the 964 is getting or has gotten. You know, when the 964 was being developed, you know, internally we almost referred to it as the ugly duckling. Internally, we had a name for the car. And in German, it's called Schlauchboot, no? Which means a rubber dinghy.
Right, okay, yeah.
Because everything is, you know, at the time, because of what we had done to the 964, everything was very rounded. You know, it not very many people were comfortable with how, you know, sometimes for some people thought it was overinflated in certain areas, you know, the front bumper, the rear bumper, and the rocker panels, you know, at times, you know, even I myself, you know, had wished we had done more in terms of changes. At first, there were times or there were certain views where, you know, we thought ourselves that the car was a little bit, you know, heavy because of the volumes of the front and the rear bumper. But fortunately for me, you know, the bosses loved what we did and they accepted it. And over time, people or the buyers for 964, they equally fell in love with it and then just you know, accepted it as a greater improvement on what was already very good to begin with the 911. And you know, like you said, it was a big challenge, and we weren't sure that the public would actually like it as much as they have, you know, once we were done. No? Mm. But the aerodynamics and the family look that we created finally just pulled the car together.
That's interesting. They do it as a bit of a beauty parade and then they pick one.
100%, yeah. But it's good because it gets, it's like, competition's healthy, isn't it? And kind of that bit of infighting to try.
I think it's a very pretty car. I mean, I had the turbo version, but I think the non-turbo bodied, gorgeous looking car.
Well, that's it, yeah, because you've owned a 964, Paul. You have a 964, so like, it was known internally as the ugly duckling to begin with, but obviously
the rubber ring.
It's the rubber dinghy, wasn't it?
Yeah, rubber dinghy. Yeah.
It's obviously it's got a totally different perception now among enthusiasts worldwide, isn't it? You know,
it's the one to have, isn't it? I mean, it's
I think all that's the proportions, the size of the car generally.
It looks small to me today, though.
Yes, very much so.
It's not like he was saying the proportions are big. I thought it
you
looks
go back
quite
to
dinky.
Andy's point earlier about the way that when you sit in it, the sort of screen's almost wrapping around you, and the proportions you can touch it. You don't have to pull the knob up on the other side of the lock. It's you can reach it. You can get across. And I think that there's a lot of appeal to that as well. And I think that if you look at as the cars, they followed the pattern, and you can see the lineage from the 3 Carrera, the G series to the 6.4, the 9.3. You go down into a very different front end, and I think that probably sort of highlights the 6.4.
I think that split the room, didn't it? So much that everything up to that point was in one camp, wasn't it? And I think that included the 964.
Yeah, I think almost it went with the 9.7 goes back to the 6.4.
I'm not sure what that says about the 993, but we won't do any 993 bashing when Andy
you have to defend it. You had to move, and I agree you had to move because the slope front is better. But the upright headlight in the 911s as a G series, or generally, it's just wins. And I think even if you added the blend like the E-types did, you got your upright, but then smoothed it in a bit like the 901 or 904 that was at the show. I think that would have been better than to lay it back like the 993's done.
For me, it's going. I don't know if you had the experience when you first went. You talked earlier about going in one in the 70s, and I remember going in my father's one. Just that profile of that wing and the headlight. It's to find the corners. You saw where the car was going to go, and you get out and there's that. So distinctive headlight is quite important. I think that
everything's very functional, isn't it? Everything's design works. Apart from the headlight's not very bright, but I mean it's. I say that 70s one my uncle took me out in was unbelievable because I thought I was like Jack the Lad at 12 or whatever it was, and then fucking hell, what's this? What's this piece of shit then? He was a London car dealer, so he'd had a choice of everything. That's where he came up to see he was my dad's cousin or something like that.
Well, Ben said elsewhere in the interview that essentially, and I don't think too many people know this, is that the 993 was meant to be the spiritual successor to the 3.2 Carrera, but it was certain restrictions on budget, but also technology at the time as to how the 964 was actually born. And there's just a very, very, very subtle drop in the on the 911. They're called the gun barrels, the front fenders to the headlights. If you look on the 964, there's just a very subtle drop at the lights. Whereas the G series cars like yours, Chuck, it's very upright all the way to the end. And Ben was saying he just tried to bring back a little bit of the 356 silhouette with just that slow drop off at the front.
Interesting, yeah.
And then obviously. Because they needed to keep the upright headlights because that's where light technology was at the time. Like the 993 had moved on for them to drop it. The car was smoother, has a lower drag coefficient and whatnot. So they kind of had to work around restrictions really. But the 993 was meant to spiritually be that successor.
Well, I think the Vario Ram must have cost a bit because that was still fairly new, I think, in that era.
That was 993.
Oh, sorry, that's
95,
yeah, 95 came in.
Yeah, but it's just funny, isn't it, that when the 964 was being created, that its reception internally was that, and now it's like Joe said, it's the ultimate 911. Everybody wants a 964 and sees it as the sweet spot.
But it went through such an unloved stage, didn't it? That was to the extreme.
It's expensive to service. That was the problem with it.
Yes,
because there's no hydraulic tappets, and you had to go through them all. So it was a big bill. But my next door neighbour in Jersey had a cream one with a burgundy interior, left hooker, dial wheels on it. Fucking gorgeous car.
Really?
Absolutely gorgeous looking car.
Well, we all we got the WhatsApp from Carl today.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, 20,000 mile cobalt blue.
Yeah.
So 964 Carrera 2.
Go on, how much?
But you're going to guess right now.
20,000 miles, cobalt blue, 964.
Manual as well.
Manual.
Yeah, manual.
Coupe, I assume.
Yeah.
Coupe.
Sunroof or non-sunroof?
I don't think the sunroof.
I'm going to go for, is this trade or is this market?
Well, this is
it does both. So fire at any of them.
Yeah. Mate, you're not going to believe what's just come in.
Mate.
It's in my bedroom.
Yeah. 20,000 miles left-hand drive, though. Left-hand drive.
Right.
Oh, right-hand drive.
Yeah. So the real deal, proper job.
Okay, I'm going to go for knowing Carl. He's got to eat, isn't he? He's got to eat. I'm going to go for 94,995.
Bang on the money.
Is that trade or
is it really?
Is that hang about?
Sorry. No, I think
that trade or is that?
Well, this week it's 85, but when it comes in, it's 90. I think was.
They just keep going up and up and up and up.
That's an exceptional car at 20. I would have thought. Hope it reflects that.
Well, this is it. Providing it's verified. I'm sure it will be.
So it's got an impeccable history.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to have a close look at a 20,000 mile car as to is that showroom or is it just been sat around for a long time and everything's a bit
exactly.
Well, maybe if Carl is actually going to get it in, maybe you could go and do a video.
It'd be nice to, totally. I mean, I remember doing something with a the colour has escaped me now, the 964 RS in the blue. What was the blue? Maritime blue, that's the one, yes. Maritime. And I was doing like a bit of a buyer's guide for a third party, bit of video presenting and going around the track at Bicester, their little track there, and just thinking this car's absolutely all over the place. It's skidding around really early doors, check the tyres, and the tyres were like 12 years old. The car, and they were part of the appeal was the car had been sitting around for years. Well, yeah, but the tyres is just the very tip of the iceberg, isn't it? If a car has been sat around for years, it's going to need some sort of recommission to get bang up to scratch. Is my thing of that. I don't know about this particular car. I've not seen it. And
that's always the concern, isn't it? I mean, they're of an age where they've either been looked after or just left.
Yeah. Well, the head bolt was still snap on those. It's only a 993 that stopped, so you could be into an engine rebuild and not know it.
That's the thing with 993s. Like if you had a 993 C2 of similar mileage, I just don't think that would fetch the same sort of money. Really,
you're asking the wrong bloke. I would not. I wouldn't have a 993, even a cabriolet, just with a pram hood.
Really?
Just not me at all.
Really? Yeah. Why is that? That's really interesting.
No, well, I bought the 996 because I wanted a drop head, and that disappeared. Where you got almost pull it back and cover it over like an old 20s bloody pram.
So the 996 was, but the one that really where they really nailed it with the cabriolet is 991.
Without a doubt, it follows that same kind of coupe silhouette of the line.
Not even the 997, they didn't get that one, but it's actually got carbon fibre panels inside the roof. And having owned one for quite a number of years, it's as good as a coupe as you can probably get.
Well, coming on to modern stuff's quite timely because we want to talk about how do we pronounce it, Jay?
Taycan?
Yeah, we can go with that, yeah.
Taycan.
I say...
Chaka Khan, was that?
Can't take you everywhere.
So this is going to be interesting because there's been a lot of media coverage of Taycans and how brilliant they are, and we've even discussed it on this podcast as a product. What a fabulous, fabulous product. I think what we haven't heard yet is a honest owner account, really, and obviously, Paul, you're able to deliver on that. So, what are your thoughts, and mainly, what is your experience with the Taycan? Where are you at?
Okay. Well, I think I should say, let's start by saying everything that's been written about it in terms of being a game changer, being in most respects being an incredible piece of engineering. 6 billion, I think they invested into euros, probably into that car, and it is fabulous. The Infotel systems, the design, it is a fantastic car. And in a way, our generation need to buy into this new technology because it gets bought, the engineering investment is justified, and the technology moves forward. And really where the technology needs to move forward is in terms of range and usability and ability to charge. Because I bought it for firstly, I admired the engineering, but also felt like one needed to invest in the technology. And the tax incentives, I've never bought a car through a company. It's the first one I bought through a company, and you're getting 100% write-off, got a government grant back, and there is no benefit in kind. So there were a lot of reasons to buy it, and it felt like it was very sensible. The reality is, when the car was delivered, it's amazing. And you guys have done it. That first time you get in it and you put your foot down, and it is quite sensational. And the way it can cover ground at legal speeds, but the way it can cover ground is phenomenal. But also the quietness of it, and you arrive somewhere feeling fresh, and that's fantastic. The only thing is, you don't arrive quite as far as you thought you might. And so the first time I picked it up, it charged it up, said range is 194 miles. Oh, okay. So I did 20 or 30 miles and decided to do one of our usual runs down to West Bay on a Sunday morning. I was on my own. Just got up early, went down to West Bay, enjoyed the country roads, got to West Bay, which is 40 miles, do you think?
Yeah, not far off.
Certainly not 50.
Yeah, let's be fair, let's call it 45. So 45 miles there, 45 miles back. I started with a 150-mile range. By the time I got to won the best pub of the year in 1822 or whatever it was, the pub on the roundabout that had the sign up for years and years and years. I can't remember where it is now, that pub. And it was screaming at me that I really needed to get charged immediately. I had absolutely nothing. So bear in mind, I by that stage I'd done 80 miles, and
so you left with 150.
Yeah,
you did 80.
Yeah,
and you're down to 0.
7.
And that is, you do not want to be in deepest, darkest Dorset when you're getting that sort of message, you know.
No. You got a brick.
Yeah.
And so I'm sort of going like, what am I going to turn off next? So mobile phone unplugged, electric seat wasn't on, all this sort of thing. But it has a limp mode. And you're not allowed, when it gets to that, you can't go over 70, not what you do, of course, but you can't go over 70, it decreases acceleration. Anyway, I did get home, plugged it in, and I've had the charger upgraded at home, or rather I've had to have the electrics upgraded at home, and it charges overnight. Okay, that's fine. Actually, when I was in West Bay, a couple came up to me and were saying that they had a Taycan, and that they lived in Leeds and they didn't bring it with them. They brought the Macan because they weren't sure they were going to get to their house there. But the chap said to me, over the first 1,000 miles, his range went from 190 odd to 260. So the batteries, and forgive me, I don't know all the ins and outs of the technology, but I understand the batteries condition themselves. The software works out.
So it gets better.
Yeah,
the more
it gets
you drive
better.
it.
Mine's up to about 224 now, having done 800 miles.
Is that now a reliable 224? Are you finding? No. Okay.
No, because you if you're sitting on a motorway doing 70 miles an hour the whole time, yes, I'm sure the range extends. But if you're doing stop-start driving today, I started with 224 miles. I've done probably 40 miles, and I'm down to 160. So if you do the maths, and a lot of it is just stop-start.
You're losing a bit every time you do the stop-start.
But I always put the regeneration on. There's a regeneration button and things. So, for example, I've got lockdown restrictions permitting, I've got a business meeting which is 200 miles away. There is no way that I am going to be taking the Taycan to that business meeting, because I'm going to be in the middle of the countryside at this meeting, and I've got to get home. And so the other thing is there's no super fast charger at Bournemouth OPC. There is at Guildford. It was installed literally the day that I happened to go there to do something else there. And to be fair, the supercharger gave me 51% charge in 44 minutes, but it actually gave me about 80% in 20 minutes. So that does work. And at the moment it's free. So my card, if I tap it on the system in a Porsche network, I don't pay to charge it. And I think that reflects the fact they know there isn't a proper network.
Right. Yeah.
So I've joined
makes sense.
A BP one and a Polar one. But reality is, I can't plan my life and day around thinking that I've got to go to Leicester or go to Bicester and be running around looking for a charging station
that might or might not be available.
It might, well, yeah. The other thing is, if there aren't many of them, they're sending a lot of cars. You might turn up there, and there's a queue of people to
use it.
To use it. So the range anxiety is something that I sort of never really experienced.
So is it real? Range anxiety, is that actually definitely a thing?
Yeah, it absolutely is. As soon as you get down below, in my mind, it's just below 100 miles, but certainly below 50 miles, because the reality is you've got a 2.5 ton car that is suddenly going to draw to a halt. And what else gives out? Do your lights give out?
Yeah, true.
If you're on a motorway, is there a sort of default where the drive stops and you've got 5 hours of lights? And so, but if you look at the Tesla, so I went to Cornwall not in a Taycan, but we turned up at the hotel and there were 4 or 5 Tesla charging stations there. Now, I don't know whether you can use a Tesla charging station or not with the Tesla network, whether you can use it on a Taycan.
I don't think you can. I think they are quite protective of their network, I believe.
Well, and rightly so, because they've invested in the net. But I think almost the government, there needs to be almost like the sort of mobile phone sharing mast syndrome, saying, look, guys, sorry, but you can't have in a service station a Porsche network, a Tesla network. You've got to have a caring, sharing. Maybe you can priority book if you're a Tesla owner.
But I mean, their network, I think, is getting closer. I mean, you pull into fleet services and you've got a row of, 10 or 15 Tesla superchargers, and you think, that could work. But I think you're right. I think it needs to be an all or nothing kind of approach to that.
Yeah. If the range were 400 miles, absolutely, don't you at all? Because we could have got to Cumbria.
Yeah.
Parked up at the hotel all around the corner, and you would have then charged up overnight, and you'd had a day. But 200 to 250, if you are actually driving from a business perspective, not local. And bear in mind, I've only ever been in the car with maximum 2 of us. If you were 4 up, which that car is designed to do, with some luggage, is the real range 150?
Suddenly very limiting, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, just going to Winchester and back, dropping my son off, and left with 150 miles, and I was down Winchester and back. It's again probably 90 miles, isn't it? Yeah, and I was down to 30 miles below what it should have been.
And that's the thing, isn't it? If you've got a vehicle with a combustion engine, if you need to top up fuel, that's not a problem. It's kind of a 5-minute detour, isn't it? Whereas in an electric car, it's how long?
Well, you could even take fuel with you, can't you? I mean,
if you run out, that is the thing with
you get your green tub, can't you, on a fuel day and just top it up.
I've run out on a photo shoot.
Never.
I'll leave.
Did anyone have a green one?
Leave to the rescue. Don't ever early 911s. Don't trust the fuel gauge.
Funny actually, when we were Andy and I were coming back from Silverstone at the weekend.
Were you tapping the gauge with it?
Well, the 2.7 RS went below a quarter, and I radioed to Andy and I said, "I've seen this car run out. I am not chancing it below a quarter of a tank. I am not doing it." So, but that's the thing. It's splash and dash, isn't it? But with an electric car, that's a very different thing. It's half an hour out your day. I mean, if you've been at a business meeting all day or doing something, sometimes you just want to get home. You don't then want to have to sit in somewhere like fleet services or, I mean, I've been kind of siphoned off around the back of a random Shell garage in Eastleigh when I had the Taycan press car, and I just thought, in what world do I want to be sitting here for 45 minutes waiting for this,
I agree. So I think that if, for example, you are the type of person who does a school run in the morning, goes into your office, maybe go at lunchtime, and you do 10, 20, 30 miles a day, and you know your routine, fantastic. And they are beautifully engineered, fantastic to drive, and you're ticking a box in many ways, without getting onto the debate about batteries, where they come from, where they go to, whether they're exhausted. I think that's a whole thing which people sort of slightly push under the carpet, because while that car is, and where's the electricity generated, not coal-fired particularly now, but where is it being generated? And people don't really count all that in. But if you know your routine, fantastic. And I think probably for 50%, 60%, 70% of the owners, that is absolutely fine. But for somebody like myself, where I could be going to Newquay tomorrow because I've got a meeting down there,
Doesn't work.
There's no way that I need the stress. As long as you're working life, your family, you do not need the stress of suddenly pouring with rain. I'll never forget. Do you remember the old G Whizzes, the first electric car?
Yeah.
Right? I had a friend of mine who had one, and terribly green, always was. And they had children at King's in Wimbledon, I think it is. It's a school up there, and they lived in Fulham. And got a phone call, mate. I'm going up at Putney Hill. It's pouring with rain. Yeah, I have a choice. Either I sit here being able to see and the wipers going, but I can't go anywhere, or I turn them off and I can go somewhere. So the choice was moving and no visibility, or visibility but not moving. Yeah. And that was sort of highlighted, and that was just commuting. But it will change. I mean, I think that Tesla now have something called the PLAID, PLAID option. Allegedly, it does 0 to 60 in sub 2 seconds, and it's got over 500-mile range. Now, whether that is true, you can place an order for one now. I think Tom from TGE did something on it, and he's placed an order for one, and you can understand 500-mile range.
It's usable then, isn't it?
That's where it fits into our lifestyle. At the moment, we have to change our lifestyle to fit to the product, and I don't really know any other product that's kind of been pushed to the masses where that's been expected.
Not when it's designed to give you convenience.
Yeah.
And all that I've seen so far is, you're getting inconvenience.
Yeah.
I think it's got to start though, hasn't it? I think that's what we're talking about. It started.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you've got to trial it. Formula One pushes stuff down the line to the road cars, and this is another way. But
it's the network's the problem. Not if the network was sorted properly, then the range, the 250, 260 range is less of a problem, because
you're not looking, are you?
Yeah, we can always say, actually, I'm going to leave at 7, not 8, and I'm going to stop and have a coffee and sit down and do my emails at that point, and
makes sense.
Put sort of 30 minutes.
Which is a time thing, isn't it? They both need to catch up. If you get 500-mile range and a 50% increase in charge availability, or you can charge in 20 minutes, then all those problems go out the window.
Yeah, that is a different ball game, isn't it? Entirely, without a doubt.
It is a game changer in terms of the car and technology. Chuck, you were saying earlier that you thought it was a different type of buyer.
I think for Porsche, and I see Porsche's 911, not 4x4s and all the rest of it. I just see it is a business decision to encourage other people looking for a different product. I don't see it as Porsche to me. It could be another brand even.
Yeah.
It might be a smarter thing to call it something else.
But like Toyota did with Lexus.
And I think it works. Marketing's a whole subject. But for me, going back to the good old days of power-weight ratio, that's all you had. If you wanted to go fast, you needed a slippy shape and no weight, or a lot of horsepower or less horsepower. And I think this has gone off that for me. I think it's a very interesting project, and, it's great and electric, but I'm just not there with it at all. I think for me, somebody somewhere, Formula One have said it, they're going to stick with fuel, petrol-driven cars, new recipes for fuel to get the power.
Porsche are looking at synthetic fuels, to be fair.
Yeah.
And you've already got it. I think quite a few of the turbo supercharged engines, recycling gases, you're going to have fuel cells, that I guess is what it is. That'll come.
Interesting stuff on the Taycan.
It is. I think what's quite funny, and what we should probably point out before we go any further, is that midway through the rest of that conversation, somebody around that table pressed the stop button on all our mics, so it cut off the last minute or so. Hence why, Andy, you and I, we're now recording this outro to the episode remotely.
Indeed.
In lockdown.
Yeah,
that we tried to avoid in the first.
Yeah, I think maybe doing 2 episodes in one night was maybe a bit too much. I think everybody was getting a bit tired.
I think somebody was looking at the time and just thought, "Oh, sod it! I think it's time to go home." My money's on Joe, to be honest. He needs his beauty sleep, doesn't he? So.
He does. Brilliant.
But very interesting accounts, and 2 ownership accounts as well. One of which is a classic, and obviously the other is right at the other end of the scale in Taycan.
Yeah.
And why actually, from an ownership point of view, that car and that concept isn't quite ready for everybody just yet.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the network's not ready. That's the thing, isn't it? The car's ready, but the network's just not ready for it, unless you've got a Tesla, really.
Yeah, exactly. And we found that in the 48 hours that we had the car, and it's kind of nice to be vindicated on that front in a way. I was fairly vocal about it a few episodes ago. And, there's a lot of journalists, they get to drive the car for a day and hand it back and go, oh, what a lovely thing. But there's a difference between that and actually living with a product. So, it's nice to be kind of vindicated in that regard that although it's a lovely product, there's still a little bit of work to do in terms of infrastructure. Yeah,
but they'll get there, I guess, in the end.
Definitely, yes. You've got a question, haven't you, from a dear listener? I have, yeah. Toby Dyer dropped us a question, which is very kind of him, and that was about supporting the show. I'll read it out. I finally caught up on all your episodes. Great stuff, all of them. Thank you, Toby. Awesome. Keeping him company on his weekend walks and gives motivation to go out. So excellent. We're actually a fitness regime. Wonderful. Who needs Joe Wicks? He says he's learned lots along the way, and keeping me healthy at the same time. So thank you very much. One topic that keeps popping up in his head, and probably others, is what's the best way to listen to you guys to give you optimum monetization opportunities? How do you monetize your efforts? How can your supporters help? We all want to help you create great contexts. Sam Moore's talked about it on your last pod, and it would be interesting to know more about how the podcasts work, how you make them, effort that goes into them, etc. Most people are familiar with YouTube subs plus ads equals revenue, but podcasts are a different medium. And there's no sort of direct feedback mechanism. So quite a long sort of rambling email, but thank you very much for the question. Really, as far as supporting us is concerned, we've just got one way of doing that at the moment, and that's through Patreon, which Toby is one of our Patreon supporters. So if you go onto Patreon and put Road to Redline in, or there's a link on our Instagram page, if you go to the link in the bio, or there's also a link in most of the show notes if you go onto any of the podcast episodes, whichever medium you download it on, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google, etc., they've all got a link to the Patreon. And there you can, basically what you're doing at the moment is donating some money to us each month to help us pay the things that we need to pay. So we've got quite a few things that we pay. There's the hosting fees. We use a program for doing the sort of post editing to give you a nice sound quality, and there's a couple of other bits and bobs that we pay for each month, which at the moment we're paying pretty much out of our own pockets and keeping us going. Yeah, I think it's a fair point, Andy. I mean, the reason we kind of started the pod was it's a passion project, isn't it? But absolutely. Ultimately, this is keeping us out the pub and something that we do in our spare time, and there are kind of costs involved with that. I don't know about you, and I'm quite happy to put forward the motion that if any listeners see us out and about at car shows or whatever next year, very happy to accept the odd brown envelope. That's not a problem at all. Brilliant, yeah. always got time for a bung, so that's fine. Yeah, but otherwise, I'd say head to Patreon, echoing Andy's sentiments there without a doubt. It is a bit strange with podcasts in that there's no clear. With YouTube, it's all contained in one sort of thing. In podcasts, there's no clear feedback mechanism. So if you can do any sort of 5-star reviews and give us a nice review on Apple Podcasts or any of the podcast platforms that you use, then that really helps us, because that gets us up in the charts, which gets more people listening to it. And I think that's the thing. It's not just from our side saying, well, we just want loads of people listening to it. Actually, the higher up the charts we are, the more opportunities are presented to us, and then the more kind of editorial
we're able to give to people listening at home, isn't
Absolutely,
it? That's kind of the whole thing. It just it spins the wheel and hopefully has that snowball effect, but we can't kind of reach up for these other opportunities further up the chain without people's feedback and, as you say, ratings, particularly if they're 5-star.
Yeah, I mean, we've had some absolutely amazing guests so far for an up and coming podcast. But yeah, the higher we get in the charts, the easier it is to get more and better guests, I guess. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, don't know about you, I'm running out of mates to drag on here now. I've only got 5 anyway, but no, yes, exactly that. Great question, Toby. Thank you very much for writing in.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, it goes for everybody listening at home. Any feedback you've got to give us, positive or constructive, please get in contact and let us know. The only way we can improve and give you the podcast that you're happy to listen to is by you guys telling us exactly what you think of Road to Redline.
Absolutely, yeah. Give us as much feedback as you can. Really, really appreciate it.
Definitely, yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Next week, we've got a cracker, haven't we? Including the first Road to Redline giveaway, which you sorted out. Absolute kudos, my friend.
Yeah, pretty. I think it's going to be a really good episode. Talking to somebody about tyres. Quite a lot about all-season tyres and winter tyres, which is topical, and that's sort of why I chased the tyre thing, because I think a lot of people are thinking that it's time for new tyres for the winter, and whether that's on their Porsche or whether it's on their daily car.
Yes, and I have to say, for those listening at home and are thinking, bloody hell, tyres, I might give that one a miss.
Yeah.
I guarantee you this is one not to miss, because there are so many interesting elements covered. It actually really surprised me. We've already recorded it, haven't we?
We have,
it really surprised me just how interesting that was. I guarantee you are going to learn a truckload of information by listening to that.
Yeah.
So definitely mark that down as a must listen, without a doubt.
Yeah, must listen for the actual content, but also for the giveaway as well. One of our lucky winners will actually go away with a whole brand new set of tyres. Details we'll come on to next week on how you can win those.
Definitely, yes. That's exciting, to be honest. And this is the sort of stuff that we want to be able to do. We want it to be rewarding for people to listen to Road to Redline for the stuff they learn, and obviously get to form part of our Road to Redline family. But then also it's winning awesome prizes and that sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
excellent. Okay, I think we're
awesome, Andy.
Wrap it up for today.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for rescuing the end of this episode and realising that somebody, Joe, stopped a little bit too soon. But we'll see you next week for that really interesting conversation and the giveaway.